at this very moment. I want to go over to CNN's national correspondent, Bryn Gingras. Bryn, bring me up to speed.
Yeah, Kate, we've just learned that at this point, the jury in the Cosby trial is deadlocked. They have informed the judge just moments ago, quote, "We cannot come to unanimous consensus on any of the counts." Remember, they're considering 3 counts of indecent aggravated assault in the 2004 incident with Andrea Constant and Bill Cosby. The judge has told that jury that they need to come to a consensus, has now ordered them back into the deliberations room, which is where they're going to continue discussing this case. Remember, this is a jury that has worked over 3 hours together in the past 4 days, asking many questions, 6 to be exact, on the nature of these charges, questions concerning exactly what happened in that case in 2005. And so certainly right now it appears have not been able to come to an agreement. Again, though, the judge telling them that they need to. They're going to deliberate until 9 o'clock tonight, we're told, by the judge and our reporters that are in the courtroom, and reassess this later this evening. But for now, they're going to continue deliberating. Kate?
One of the things that's been playing out during this deliberation, Bryn, is the jury, as often does, comes back to the judge with questions. And I think, and I may have lost count at this point, but I think the last count was they had come back with 6 questions to the judge. When they came back to the judge this time and said we are deadlocked, did they have any other questions, or did he just say, give it another go, guys?
No, and that's really it. They came back with a note saying to the judge that we can't come to a consensus. They didn't actually have a question, and you're right, Kate. There were 6 questions. A lot of those questions were really just readback of testimonies that have happened in this case over the last week of this trial. Certainly, it's unclear. We never know what's in these jurors' minds of what they can't sort of agree on at this point. But a lot, again, has been about the testimony of what happened that day, that incident, the he said, she said, in that 2005 incident in Bill Cosby's home. But again, they have to come to a consensus. The judge telling them that they have until 9 o'clock tonight, and then they're going to have to reassess what happens from there, Kate.
And also just some perspective for everybody, Brennan, and add to this. This is a jury of 7 men and 5 women, and this has been one of those unusual situations that no jury really wants to go through, which is they've been sequestered in a hotel for the duration of the trial. So this is a jury that, you know, everyone is motivated to come to a conclusion and to reach a verdict, but this is a jury that has been sequestered. Their lives have been put on hold while they've been considering this very, very high-profile decision.
Oh, absolutely, Kate. And like you said, yeah, they have not been able to go home. They are going back to hotels, and they're putting in long days. And we say 30-plus hours over 4 days. I mean, they are eating through their lunches. They are eating through their dinners. They are asking for these questions, going right into the courtroom and listening to the answers or the readback of the testimony to all their questions. So they're certainly working hard at this. So when they came to this deadlock decision, it certainly seems like there is something that is keeping them from agreeing. But again, it is their duty to find some sort of verdict in this, and the judge is asking them to continue those deliberations at this point.
This is really remarkable how this has played out. Bryn, stand by. Thank you for bringing this breaking news. Let me bring in Paul Callan right now. Paul, you've been following this. You've been very helpful in helping all of us understand the trial and the many machinations as things have been playing out. Give me your reaction to this.
Well, I've seen this coming over the last couple of days, Kate. It looks to me like you have a holdout juror, a single holdout juror, or maybe a small group of holdout jurors holding it as against the majority who maybe have come to a different conclusion about guilt or innocence. And what we're hearing now is a report of a deadlocked jury. That's followed by what is traditionally called the dynamite charge, which is given by the judge to the jury, essentially saying, you have an obligation to go back to deliberate in good faith and to try to reach a decision because you're better equipped than any other jury will be, and you might as well get the job done. So that they take one last shot at getting them to come to an agreement, and then we're likely to see a mistrial if the jury can't reach a conclusion after the dynamite charge.
All right, Paul, stand by for me. Michael Zeldin is here with me as well. Michael, drastically changing directions from what we thought we would be talking about, but play off of what Paul's going out there. Do you see this? How often does a jury, when a judge says go back and give it another go, do they figure it out, or do you think this is more likely to be a mistrial than not?
Well, I agree with Paul that it probably is a split that's like 10-2, 11-1, 9-3, and they just can't get the last three to join with the majority. The so-called Allen charge, this what Paul called the dynamite charge, is that says, look, guys, nobody can do this better than you, as Paul said, and please do it one more time. Often, though, it doesn't get you there. When you are sequestered and you've been there 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, and you just can't make progress, it means that somebody is just not cooperating with the majority, and it's going to end up in a mistrial.
And Paul, one of the things you and I have been discussing about this is the strategy on the Bill Cosby side. They called only one witness, which was actually recalling a witness who had already taken the stand, did not put Bill Cosby on the stand, and they wrapped up in 1 day.
Yes, they did, and obviously they perceived a very weak prosecution case presented, and they decided to counter with literally a 6-minute defense. But, of course, they were also confronted with an extremely difficult situation. If they put Bill Cosby on the stand, he could be cross-examined extensively, and, you know, some of these problematic charges made by so many other women might have come to light, and he also would have a hard time explaining his encounter with Constant, given the prior deposition in the case. So I think wisely the defense attorney said, you know something, the case didn't go in very strong for the prosecution. We're really not going to put in a defense. You know, and I wanted to add to what Michael said, you know, following what this means when a jury says that they're deadlocked it's a really tough thing for lawyers, because we've all seen it play out in different ways. I can tell you I have also seen juries come back like within an hour after getting the so-called Allen or dynamite charge with a verdict. So the opposite can happen. That can be the one thing that gets that recalcitrant juror or group of jurors to say, you know something, maybe I should take a second look at my thoughts here, and you get a quick verdict then. So it'll be sort of a tense couple of hours now to come as people wonder whether we're going to have a verdict or not.
Absolutely. One high-profile attorney to help me out through this to another. Mark Garagos jumping on the line now. Mark, what's your take on this?
It's a very good question. I mean, you never know until you actually see them come in and see what they have to say.
But when you're looking at a deadlocked jury right now, this Allen charge, telling him to go back and give it another go, what's your take? Do you think it's more likely they come back and say, we couldn't get there? Or do you think that after this jury of 7 men and 5 women who've been bussed in from a neighboring county, and they've been sequestered for the length of this trial, do you think they're going to get this figured out?
Well, my experience is that generally the Allen charge, when it's been this long, will not dynamite the jury. That's what we nickname it, as the dynamite charge, because people are already entrenched, and you know, it's outlawed in many states, although it's still viable in the federal system. And I think that, frankly, my personal opinion is it's somewhat coercive. But given the number of hours, and given the fact that it's a sequestered jury, and as you said, given the fact they're 300 miles from home, and this judge has been very attuned to the fact that he doesn't want to keep them there any longer or inconvenience them any more than he has to. I think a lot of it has to depends on exactly the split and who's leading the charge, so to speak.
And that, of course, is the huge question. All of the focus right now is on the makeup of that jury, 7 men and 5 women, and where that split is, who and where the divide is. We're showing you a graphic right now of the makeup of Mark, and you might not be able to see it. 4 white women, 1 black woman, 6 white men, 1 black man. You never know what is in their minds and what is holding them up. If you had to guess, where the line falls within the jury, but what issue is dividing them, what do you think it is?
Well, you know, I think that, and I think I've been on CNN saying this for a while, that when they selected the jury, given the makeup, both gender and race, And given the quality of the evidence, or lack of quality, depending on your viewpoint, that it's going to break down racial and gender lines. And that's what I've always said. I've always thought it would be a hung jury. I've said it since day one. And my guess is that after 30 hours of deliberation, that you're not going to necessarily change anybody's mind. And I don't think, even if he sends them back and even if they sit there till the end of today, he's not going to keep them through the weekend. So if they're deadlocked and if they haven't rolled anybody yet, and part of what the reading of the tea leaves is people will be looking, who are there in the courtroom, at which jurors are talking to who, which jurors are pairing off, or 3 or 4 at a time, and trying to figure out. If it's one person, the number of the split, I don't think it's been reported. Has anybody reported as to the numbers?
Not yet, nope.
Okay. If it's 11-1, there's a higher degree of likelihood that the one gets rolled. But if there's more than one, my experience has been that generally they're entrenched and they're not moving. As long as there's a bonding going on, and after this kind of period of time, I'd almost guarantee there would be. I don't think that it's likely that they'll be able to roll, that the majority's going to roll the minority.
Fascinating. Mark, stick with me.
One of the things.
Oh, go ahead, Mark. Go ahead, Mark.
I was going to say, one of the things that's interesting to me, and one of the reasons that I personally find the Allen charge so offensive, is there's nothing wrong with, and the U.S. Supreme Court has stated it, there's nothing wrong with a hung jury. A hung jury is just as permissive an outcome as a guilty or a not guilty verdict. In fact, a hung jury has the same, it speaks to the quality, if you will, of the evidence that the prosecution's putting on. If a jury is hung, that's what it is. But remember, at the same time, we just finished a trial in Los Angeles. Meaning the county of Los Angeles and the federal court there, where the sheriff, Lee Baca, had a hung jury 11-1 for acquittal. And they retried him the next month and convicted him. So it was a completely different situation the second time around. So sometimes...
And that gets me actually to a question that I have. Let me bring Paul Callan back into the conversation. Paul, are you still with me?
Yeah, still with you. Yep.
So if this is a hung jury, they come back at 9 o'clock tonight and they can't get anywhere. What happens next? Is this over?
Oh, no, it's far from over, and it's why I would have to disagree with Mark on why we should try to encourage juries to reach a conclusion. If there's a hung jury, the prosecutor's going to look at the case, and he will either decide to dismiss it, or he may decide, if the split was favorable to him, i.e. more voting for conviction than acquittal, to retry the case. And everybody is put through the agony of a second trial. And, of course, these trials involving claims of sexual assault and sexual harassment are very painful for all parties concerned. And plus, this is a high-profile case with, a lot of costs to the county involved. Remember, they had to pick a jury from a different county to try the case.
Right.
It is not been an easy thing trying this case. So I think,
and Paul,
we want a verdict if we can get one, so without prejudicing anybody. And here, I think what's surprising to me, this jury's been out for an awful long time for such a short trial, and this is the first time now they've come back reporting a deadlock. They've had a lot of readbacks. I've been watching the readbacks very, very carefully, and when you see that, it tends to be a small number of jurors holding out against the majority. And the majority then says, okay, you want readbacks, then we'll get you the testimony. See, doesn't that prove our position, whatever it is, for acquittal or conviction? And now this is only the first time they're coming in reporting deadlock. A lot of these cases, they report deadlock more than one occasion because the judge keeps sending them back out to reach a conclusion. So I'm not ruling out a verdict yet. I think we still might have a verdict. We could have a verdict today, as a matter of fact, if the Allen charge causes the holdout juror or jurors to reconsider and reassess their position.
Michael Zeldin is still here with me. What happens in the interim? I mean, we all sit and wait. What is Bill Cosby's team doing? What is the prosecutor doing at this moment?
Biting their fingernails. They're waiting too. There's really not much you can do. The judge will instruct the jury. They'll send them back. The defense will argue before an Allen charge is given, don't give it, as Mark is saying, please don't give it. They like the notion of a mistrial, thinking that perhaps the state won't bring charges again, whereas the prosecution is saying, we want an Allen charge, we want them to reach a verdict. We sort of are concerned perhaps in a celebrity case that you've got a juror or two are saying, geez, I just can't convict Bill Cosby. He made me laugh so many years, and this is an old case, and the complainant's testimony didn't go in cleanly. And they wanted to get other witnesses other victims who could say the same thing, and the judge wouldn't allow it. So it's complicated in the minds of each lawyer. What do they want out of this? But the prosecution wants that charge given. The defense doesn't want it given. Once it's given, they wait and see. And as Paul has said, it really depends on the split.
Well, hold on. Maybe we'll get some more information about that right now. Let me go to CNN correspondent Jean Casares. She's been in the courtroom throughout this trial. She just left the court. She just left the courtroom. She's joining me now. Jean, give me some perspective. What do you know?
Well, I watched the jury file in, and I've seen a lot of emotions just in the faces of these jurors. I saw seriousness. I saw defeat in a sense. There was one male juror that had his hands folded. But the judge then said, as you've been relating, about the duty that they have to continue deliberating. And I also heard when they filed out, the judge say to the attorneys, I'm not going to set a time limit here. So they're back there right now, and I've seen many things in my experience. Sometimes very quickly they say they cannot reach a verdict. Many times they continue on and they reach a verdict. So I think anything is possible right here, but the jurors did not look happy. I did see when I first walked into the courtroom, the attorneys came in from the judge's chamber, and I saw Brian McMonagle, lead attorney for Bill Cosby, go over to Bill Cosby, who was already in the courtroom. He sat down in the chair next to Bill Cosby, which I'd never seen him do. And remember, this is before the jury came in, and he was talking to Bill Cosby in his ear, and then he patted his back, and they were just all very serious when they finished that conversation. Bill Cosby didn't have a smile on his face as he normally does. And co-counsel Angela Grusa for the defense, also very serious. This is a serious moment. Big things are at stake here. And if the jury cannot reach a unanimous verdict on all the charges, then the question will be in the minds of the attorneys, do we go forward and try this again? The prosecution can, or they cannot. It is their choice, along with, I'm sure they will talk to the alleged victim here, Andrea Constant, to get her thoughts on this.
Absolutely. Did you see, was Andrea Constant in the courtroom as well?
I was in the courtroom, yes. I was watching jurors as they walked in and as they sat down.
Was Andrea Constant in the courtroom today?
Yes. Andrea Constant was in the courtroom. Yes, she was. She has no emotion. She sits there stoically, looking ahead. There is no emotion. She is focused. She is present. She is serious, but she does not emit externally any emotions that she has.
All right, we're following this breaking news. The Cosby jury deadlocked. The judge sending them back in to ask them to give it another go. Huge news coming out of this high-profile celebrity trial. CNN special coverage will continue right after this.
15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20.
New this morning, a major development in the Russia investigation. President Trump squarely in the sights of special counsel Bob Mueller. The Washington Post is reporting that now Mueller's investigation is looking at the president for possible obstruction of justice. It comes as CNN learns that Mueller will interview several top intelligence officials as soon as this week as part of the probe. Those include Director of National Intelligence Dan Coats and NSA Director Admiral Mike Rogers.
Last week, Coats and Rogers both denied to the Senate Intelligence Committee that they were pressured by the president to intervene in an FBI probe of possible collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia during the election. And the president this morning wrote they made up a phony collusion with the Russian story. He's not talking about Coats and Rogers there. He's talking about others. found zero proof, so now they go to obstruction of justice on the phony story. Nice. And also this, you are witnessing the single greatest witch hunt in American political history, led by some very bad and conflicted people. Here to discuss, CNN White House correspondent Athena Jones and Paul Callan, CNN legal analyst. The White House, Athena, going very hard directly after the special counsel's investigation.
Hi, John. That's right. With those two tweets this morning, this is not the first time we've heard the president call these investigations in general a witch hunt, but he's made it very clear how he feels about this latest report. This is exactly the kind of headline that the president was trying so hard to avoid, a headline saying that he himself is under investigation. But it's important to remind our viewers that it's the president's own words and actions that have raised the question of obstruction of justice. Take a listen to what he had to say to NBC about the firing of James Comey, and then what Comey had to say about his firing.
When I decided to just do it, I said to myself, I said, you know, this Russia thing with Trump and Russia is a made-up story.
There's no doubt that it's a fair judgment, it's my judgment, that I was fired because of the Russia investigation.
And so there you see that it was the president himself saying that Russia was on his mind when he fired the former FBI director. And this isn't even touching on that separate conversation that Comey says he had with the president, where he says the president urged him to let the Flynn investigation go, the investigation into his former national security advisor. So it is the president's own words and deeds that have helped raise this issue. John?
All right, Athena Jones, thank you very much. And Paul Callan, to you, the legal side of all of this. What stands out to you most? I mean, Admiral Rogers and DNI Coates were stonewalling, really, to Congress in all of those questions. Is it possible, because the Washington Post is reporting that it was just shortly after May 9th when Comey was fired that this investigation really branched out into potential obstruction of justice, looking at that. Is it possible that they were not answering questions because they were being questioned by Mueller in this expanded investigation?
I doubt that that's the reason. I think they were just honoring sort of this traditional idea that, you know, confidentiality applies to presidential discussions, direct presidential discussions. I mean, you know, I find the ultimate irony here with the president saying this is the biggest witch hunt in American history. Well, it's his Justice Department that's doing the witch hunt. He's the guy in charge of the Justice Department, which is now investigating him for obstruction of justice. So if it's a witch hunt, his administration started it. This is not emanating from the Democrats. And by the way, it doesn't surprise me that, of course, Mueller would interview the intelligence chiefs. They're going to have relevant information not only on a potential obstruction charge, but if there was collusion with the Russians, who would have better knowledge of that than American intelligence authorities? They're going to know what American citizens are reaching out overseas and acting properly or improperly. So I'm not surprised that he would interview them at the beginning of his investigation. That's just being a smart prosecutor or smart.
Yeah, and one thing to note here, James Comey testified while he was FBI director. The president was under investigation by some interpretations. Now, perhaps he is at least being investigated for possible obstruction of justice, so that status may have changed. Paul Callan, Dan Coates, Admiral Rogers, Jeff Sessions refusing to answer questions, holding out the specter that at some point the White House might try to use executive privilege here. Would executive privilege prevent Bob Mueller forever from getting the information he wants from Jeff Sessions, Dan Coates, Admiral Rogers?
No, I think Mueller will be able to get the information from them even if there's an assertion of executive privilege. There's a process the courts follow, and what it is Mueller will have to establish in court that the information from them cannot be obtained from other sources, and it is essential to a criminal investigation. In that case, the courts have traditionally said executive privilege falls. The need for information in the court system is a greater public interest, and so I think in the end he'll get his information.
All right, Paul Callan, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Athena Jones at the White House as well. We are waiting for House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi to speak in just moments. That, of course, comes on a day where we are seeing a lot of unity. Hello, everyone. I'm Kate Baldwin, live in our nation's capital today. Any moment now, we are expecting to hear from President Trump from the White House. Of course, as major stories are unfolding here in Washington. First, a possible major development in the Russia investigation. The Washington Post reporting that special counsel Robert Mueller is investigating President Trump for possible obstruction of justice after firing FBI Director James Comey. And the president is not happy about it, lashing out on Twitter a short time ago. I'm going to have much more on that in just a moment. But first, all of this is happening just 24 hours after the shocking attack on Republican lawmakers as they were practicing for a charity baseball game, a baseball game that will still go on tonight. House GOP Whip Steve Scalise remains in critical condition this morning after a day of surgery for his gunshot wounds that he suffered. And we are now learning more about the gunman who was killed by law enforcement after that horrific attack. Let's begin with CNN's Boris Sanchez. He's live at Nationals Park, where the game will go on. So, Boris, what are you seeing there? What do you know this morning?
Hey there, Kate. Good morning. We are waiting for an update on the condition of Steve Scalise. As you said, he is in critical condition. We understand he had at least one more surgery to go through, but we don't know exactly how he's doing. You remember he was shot in the pelvis, had serious internal bleeding. From what we understand, congressional leaders have asked that people give his family privacy at this point. Here at Nationals Park, there is an expanded law enforcement presence. We understand that several streets are going to be cleared and closed before the game today with expanded security. As you mentioned, there was a question as to whether or not this game would even be played today, but House Speaker Paul Ryan came out yesterday and said that it was something that Steve would have wanted us to do, and the hope is that Scalise will be able to watch the game from his hospital room. It all goes to a good cause. Several charities are benefiting, including one that was added yesterday, the Fallen Officers Fund, which supports the families of officers that are killed in the line of duty. That, as we wait to learn more about the condition of those two Capitol Police officers that were hurt in yesterday's attack. All of this going on as we're hearing more and more details from those congressmen that were at the practice yesterday. Just a few short moments ago, Representative Roger Williams spoke out and told us how emotional the moment was for him. Listen.
Look, there was a lot of heroes, and the other thing about that dugout, we had older guys like me in that dugout, and we had 10-year-old Jack Barth in that dugout. Generations. We all bonded. So, but it's going to be a good night tonight.
Yeah, he mentioned Joe Barton, Representative Joe Barton's sons. Barton is actually the manager of the Republicans. He, along with Mike Doyle, his counterpart on the Democratic team, actually took out both clubs to dinner last night to talk about how to bridge the partisan divide and to reflect on their friend, Steve. Kate?
Yeah, Joe Barton, understandably emotional, everyone emotional who had to live through that yesterday. And the game will go on tonight. Boris, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Let's turn now to the latest on the shooting investigation itself and the man responsible for this. CNN's Alex Marquardt, he's in Alexander at the shooting scene near that baseball field right there. Alex, the FBI just this morning was asking for patience in a message on Twitter. Where do things stand right now?
Well, asking for the public support in learning more about James Hodgkinson, the attacker. We'll get to that in just a second, but I want to point out that it has been relatively quiet here this afternoon. We haven't seen much of a security presence, but just in the last few moments as we've been coming on the air, a team from the FBI has shown up. I can ask my cameraman to pan over there. There are 8 FBI agents from the evidence response team. They are combing the perimeter of this baseball field. You can see several of them crouching down there, looking in the grass, really combing through it with, looking, we assume, for more evidence from yesterday's attack. We'll try to get a sense of what exactly they are looking for. Out here we have the FBI leading the investigation in conjunction with local law enforcement as well as other agencies like the ATF, but the FBI is very much leading it. This is a federal investigation now that because it was Congress people, members of Congress, who had been targeted. We are learning more about James Hodgkinson, the 66-year-old attacker from Belleville, Illinois, including his past brushes with the law. In 2006, he was arrested after getting into a violent fight with his daughter and her boyfriend. He faced multiple charges, including 2 counts of domestic battery, aggravated discharge of a firearm, as well as criminally damaging a vehicle. And then in March of this year, the police were called because he was firing a hunting rifle into a tree. The police essentially let him off with a slap on the wrist. But that month, March, is when he arrived here in Alexandria, Virginia. We're also uncovering a number of disturbing anti-Republican, anti-Trump social media rants, including one from March that said, "Trump is a traitor. Trump has destroyed our democracy. It's time to destroy Trump and company." Kate?
Those taking on a completely different meaning, obviously, now in light of all of this. Alex, thank you so much. Fascinating to see FBI back on the scene right behind Alex there. Joining me now to discuss and reflect on all of this is Florida Republican Congressman Ron DeSantis. He's a member of the Republican Congressional Baseball Team. He was there yesterday. You spoke along with Jeff Duncan. You both left early from the practice. You spoke with the man. Are you sure now that it was him?
Yeah, we are sure. And I was at third base. Jeff was at second. I'm throwing balls to Scalise. He's turning double plays as guys are hitting balls to us. We felt like we had a good workout in. We said, hey, if we get on the road a few minutes early, we can beat traffic getting back to D.C. So Jeff and I decided to do that. We got into his vehicle, and an individual approached us and asked, hey, are those Republicans or Democrats out there? Jeff said they're Republicans.
Did he have a reaction?
He just kind of nodded and then turned and then kind of went towards the field. It was a little odd. You thought about it for 30 seconds. Yeah. Then we pulled away and then kind of went back to the Capitol. But as soon as the news hit that there was a shooting, Jeff and I both said, hey, we got to report this guy. We didn't know that it was the shooter. Right. But as soon as they identified him and saw his picture, and I wouldn't have been able to do a composite sketch for you, but once you see it, Jeff, me, Jeff's aide, we all said 100% that's him.
As you mentioned, you were on third base. As we all know what a baseball field looks like, Steve Scalise is at second base. You're at third base. The shooter was outside the third base dugout. Well, you were closer.
I had a number of guys tell me, it's a good thing you left a few minutes early because you'd have been fried toast. I mean, I would have been number one in the line of fire, but also just the fact...
Have you allowed that to... Are you? I mean, I almost wouldn't, allow the thoughts to kind of go. Have you allowed that to kind of sink in?
Well, I don't think it has, but Jeff reminded me he would have had a better shot of us in the car. I mean, if he was there to kill some of us, we were point blank. We had nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, and I don't know that he had his rifle on him at the time. I only saw his chest up. Okay. He very well may have had a pistol on him, but he could have easily gotten rid of three of us very quickly. Why he decided not to start there, we don't know, but, it is what it is. I mean, I'm obviously thankful that I didn't get shot.
Has a night's sleep changed anything? What does it feel like today after a night's sleep?
I don't think it's totally changed. I think a lot of us, our thoughts and prayers are with the folks that are fighting. I mean, Steve, these guys, we want them to pull through. The Capitol Police were thankful for what they did. I mean, had they not been there, had Steve Scalise just decided, you know what, I'm going to sleep in this morning, I'm not going to go to practice, you'd had 15 Republican members of Congress with zero protection. I mean, that glove, I can stop a line drive or a ground ball. I mean, those bullets are not going to be stopped by a baseball glove. So we would have been defenseless, and I think it would have gotten really ugly. So I think a lot of us are obviously, we're praying for Steve, we're praying for the others, but we're also kind of thankful that it really could have been a lot worse than what it ended up.
Absolutely. You could almost assure it would have been a lot worse if Capitol Police hadn't been there. The game goes on tonight. What is that going to be like for you?
Well, I think it's good. I mean, it's going to be sad that Steve's not there. Of any member who played, he was probably the most gung-ho about it. I have a baseball background through college, so he'd always tell me, Ron, we need you to come out. So I came out this year, and he'd see me on the house floor. Oh, man,
he'd want you to play
you're ripping it in BP. It's so I think that not having him out there is going to be tough. But I think it's going to be fun. We're going to raise at least $650,000 for charity. We think there's more money coming in now because of what happened. Yeah. And wouldn't it be great if we raised $1 million?
Absolutely.
Had a really good night.
The conversation, of course, is now what brought this about. There's no way to know for sure, of course. Do you think one party, everyone's talking about the rhetoric in Washington, do you think one party is more to blame for where things are right now?
I don't make that because I hate when people impute things to me because they find someone that may have a view. So I tend not to impute that to other people. I'm not going to blame some random Democrat because this guy did what he did, even though he had left-wing views. But I would say that there is some nastiness out there that I have not seen before. I mean, yesterday I got a call to my office after this happened. One of my constituents was pleased with what happened and wanted President Trump to be next.
That was just yesterday.
That was yesterday. We had another one of my colleagues that had a constituent email in, said, well, that's one congressman down, 217 more to go. So, that is just a level of nastiness, and I don't think it's being driven by politicians in Washington. I think it's kind of bottom up, and there's just a lot of nastiness out there. But here's the thing. politics is not a religion. Politics is a part of our life. It should not consume our lives. I don't care if you're right, left. When politics consumes your life and becomes kind of your only fighting faith, I think it becomes more nasty than to understand that, you know what, we may disagree about the role of government, about you know, how much to spend on defense. Those are important issues. Let's fight it out. But ultimately, that cannot define all of us as human beings.
Leave it on the field if you like, if you want to put it that way. Congressman, great to see you. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. We'll be watching you tonight. Take the field with your colleagues. We're also following more major breaking news this morning. President Trump is lashing out at Special Counsel Robert Mueller and his expanding investigation now. The Washington Post has a huge report out today and reporting that Mueller is now investigating the president for possible obstruction of justice. This comes as CNN learns that Mueller will interview top intelligence officials as early as this week as part of the probe. That was likely to include Director of National Intelligence Dan Coats and NSA Director Admiral Mike Rogers. This morning, the president not staying quiet about this, issuing this statement on Twitter. A couple statements. The first one, they made up a phony collusion with the Russian story, found zero proof, so now they go for obstruction of justice on the phony story. Nice. And then also this, you are witnessing the single greatest witch hunt in American political history, led by some very bad and conflicted people. Let me bring in right now CNN's crime and justice reporter, Shimon Prokupecz. So, Shimon, this report from the Washington Post, this would be opening a whole new chapter of this special counsel investigation. Where are things?
Yeah, that's right, Kate. So it would, it's not something that's unexpected. You know, there's been a lot of talk, certainly that Mueller would come in and look at this. It's something that the former FBI director, James Comey, wanted it. He's basically, this is the reason why he claims he released, it leaked that memo. So right now, what we have learned, and basically what CNN reported, is that Mueller has asked to, at the very least, in these early stages, for some information from the NSA and from the DNI, the intelligence agency, for information about what conversations they may have had with the president about possible some sort of interference, whether or not the president asked them to knock down some of these reports concerning Russia. And also, Mueller wants information about their conversations they had with the president. We've also been told that at some point he intends to interview the heads of those agencies. That's Admiral Rogers and also Dan Coats, who both testified recently before the Hill, where they refused to answer some of the questions. And also, one of the other key things here is that there was a memo that was written by the deputy of the NSA, who's now retired, where he was asking, where he basically laid out some information about a conversation that the president had with Admiral Rogers, the head of the NSA. So he's asking for all that information. It's not clear to us when he's going to get that or when he's actually going to conduct the interviews of the heads of these agencies. But clearly this shows that this is the direction that the investigation is heading in. It's certainly of interest to Mueller, and early on, at least right now, seems to be the focus of his investigation.
All right, a lot of moving parts here. Shimon, great to see you. Thank you so much for the update. We are going to be analyzing all of this morning, including what it means that the president is reportedly now this new development under investigation, and what this means and what that does to Mueller's fate. Is that now in jeopardy? Plus, the father of the American student who was just freed by North Korea, he's speaking out for the very first time about his son's condition and his harsh words for how his son was treated. We'll be right back.
Running.
This morning, a potential bombshell in the Russia investigation. The Washington Post reporting Special Counsel Bob Mueller is now looking into obstruction of justice on the part of President Trump, and the president is already lashing out against that news. Joining me now to discuss, CNN senior political analyst Mark Preston is here, CNN legal analyst and Robert Mueller's former special assistant at the Justice Department Michael Zeldin is here, and former FBI special agent and current associate dean at the Yale Law School Asha Rangappa. All, thank you so much for being here. Michael, I had read earlier in the show what the president has said this morning about the news about possible obstruction of justice. You know what? I'm going to pause 1 second. Let's go to the White House where President Trump is speaking right now.
It's been much more difficult than people even thought at the time. It's been, he's in some trouble, but he's a great fighter, and he's going to be okay, we hope. I visited Steve and his family at the hospital last night, and I reassured them that the entire country is pulling for them, praying for them, and that we are here for them every single step of the way. America's hearts, and we mean this in the truest sense, sends its love. There are a lot of hearts in this country, great hearts, and they're all sending their love and support to the Scalise family. And Steve, in his own way, may have brought some unity to our long divided country. We've had a very, very divided country for many years. And I have a feeling that Steve has made a great sacrifice, but there could be some unity being brought to our country. Let's hope so. While at the hospital, I also visited with Special Agent Crystal Griner, terrific young woman, of the Capitol Police and her family. Crystal is one of the 2 Capitol Police officers who saved so many lives through her heroism, along with Special Agent David Bailey. They ran right into the fire. They ran right into those guns and the bullets, and they saved a lot of lives. America salutes both of their courage. They have great, great courage. We all salute them. We also salute the men and women of the Alexandria Police Fire and Rescue and all of the first responders. The timing and the speed and the professionalism was incredible. They performed with bravery and with skill. Finally, our heartfelt prayers go out to Matt Micah, who was badly wounded in the assault. To Matt's family, anything you need, we are here for you. Hopefully, Matt will be okay. In these difficult hours, it's more important than ever to help each other, care for each other, and remind each other that we are all united by our love of our great and beautiful country. We're joined today by Secretary Acosta, Secretary Ross, and Administrator McMahon as we prepare to make a historic announcement to train Americans for the jobs of the future. We have a lot of companies moving into this country. You see the unemployment rate is at a very, very low level. Job enthusiasm and manufacturing, business enthusiasm is at record levels, never been higher. And a lot of good numbers are coming out, including almost $4 trillion in gain to the stock markets. And since the election, $4 trillion. We just signed a big deal yesterday for hundreds of millions of dollars worth of equipment and military equipment going to be made in this country, in our country, for other countries. We've got it going. We have to make sure the people are here and they're going to be well trained. So I want to thank my daughter Ivanka and her leadership. She has worked apprenticeship. Charles will be making more than $60,000 a year and going up a lot higher than that. And he loves what he does. I think you really love it, right? Yeah, he loves it. Charles, we thank you for your service to our country, both in the military and in exactly what you're doing right now, which is so important. And we congratulate you on this exciting new career. And you're going to have some great future. Thank you, Charles. Appreciate it. Each of the apprentices here today has their own story and their own dreams. That's what they are, dreams. Apprenticeships teach striving Americans the skills they need to operate incredible machines. And some of these machines are so intricate, so powerful. And really the word is they are incredible. This is not the old days. This is new and computerized and complicated, and you really have to know what you're doing. But they create amazing products. And to construct skyscrapers that touch the clouds, I mean, you look at the equipment today and just go back 10 years ago and 20 years ago, it's from a different world, from a different planet. It's incredible. I just met with the governors from many of the states to discuss how we can work with them to expand apprenticeships and the apprentice programs. I'm also delighted to be here with CEOs of major companies who support our apprenticeship initiatives, and we had a tremendous number of the biggest CEOs in the world here yesterday, and we talked about this also, and they're fully behind it, including our effort to help millions of talented young American women thrive and flourish in our economy. We are thrilled as well to have with us today Congressman Bobby Scott and Congresswoman Virginia Foxx, who care so deeply about this effort. Thank you. Thank you, Bobby. The strength of our nation will be determined by our ability to keep jobs in America. And we're going to keep them in America. You're not going to have companies fleeing like in the past. There's going to be